Coming live from our studios in Belize City, this is the evening news on Love Television for today, Monday, September 5th. We'll get started with a look at the stories making the headlines today. The Prime Minister meets with church leaders. Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry launches campaign for Belize to sign on to UN Convention Against Corruption. People's United Party to spearhead protests this Wednesday in Belize City. American vessel runs aground on the Barrier Reef. Guatemala rejects OAS report on shooting of minor, calls for removal of Magdalena Talamas, and teenager obtained in connection with Saturday afternoon murder in Belize District. Prime Minister Dean Barrow met with church leaders today at the Roman Catholic Diocese office to discuss issue of Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin's ruling on Section 53 of Belize's Criminal Code. In the ruling, the CJ made sexual relations between two consenting adults in private legal and redefined the word sex to also mean sexual orientation. The churches were upset, especially about the redefinition of sex. After a series of demonstrations carried out, they presented a list of demands to the Prime Minister. We caught up with Prime Minister Dean Barrow following the meeting.
We had an extremely useful, constructive, respectable, cordial dialogue. I'm going to take back some of what was said to Cabinet tomorrow. The Reverend gentleman will reflect on the substance of the discussion. We'll meet again on Friday at the Biltmore at 10 o'clock, and thereafter we hope to have a final position to give to you.
Although the PM did not give much on the substance of the meeting, church leaders eagerly spoke about what was discussed, and it looks like a give and take compromise is on the horizon. Representing the National Evangelical Association of Belize, Pastor Lance Lowy spoke about the compromises being made. Bishop Philip Wright from the Belize Council of Churches said that the churches still need to decide what they want appealed, and President of the Alliance of Churches and other interested groups, Patrick Menzies, said that he was optimistic about the forthcoming resolutions.
We still have to get our minds wrapped around exactly what we want to appeal. And that's where we are as a Christian body.
The Prime Minister has listened to all the different church leaders, given their opinion. Some have decided not to appeal. I, for one, said we want to appeal. The Catholic Church said that they will go and consider further. But the bottom line is that he's willing to withdraw the gender policy. He's willing to look at moving that the statement by the Chief Justice that said sexual orientation, sex means sexual orientation, and he's going to dialogue further. There's another meeting planned for Friday, 10 o'clock at the Biltmore. We, as a NEAB, stood by the fact that we want homosexuality to still be wrong in the sight of God and the sight of man. Others had a different opinion. We should adjust that, and that will be it.
What the PM said, in other words, the doors are open that, in my view, were not open before. So I am encouraged, and I'm looking forward to Friday, and we will submit to them again where we stand in relation to what he is proposing, and then we'll see how that works out on Friday. So as far as the alliance is concerned, we are encouraged by what we saw, optimistic, cautiously, but we're optimistic that we will get what we've been seeking.
As mentioned, church leaders and the PM will meet again on Friday after the issue is tabled at Cabinet. It is expected that on Friday they will come to a compromise. At the opening ceremony of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industries Expo and Marketplace, President of the BCCI, Nikita Usher, announced the launch of the Chamber's anti-corruption campaign. This campaign will focus on educating the masses on how they can be part of putting a halt on corrupt practices in Belize. Usher said that even though Prime Minister Dean Barrow has stated that Belize will sign on to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, it is not enough, which is why the Chamber decided to launch its campaign. But will it be effective? That is what we asked Usher.
everybody can join in. It needs the hands and hearts of everyone. It's not just a BCCI effort. It has to be the Belizean effort to ensure that we get back our jewel in a shiny way.
Are you guys working along with other bodies and unions?
Yes, we have built a coalition. Actually, when we did our letters out, we had sent out to all the social partners, unions, political parties, tertiary institutions, and we've gotten some very good responses. But the effort started from us, and so now that we've gotten, everybody would have had a role to play. But the fact that now the government has agreed to sign, we have to now rethink now the strategy in terms of how do we go now. It's now an educational campaign now. We won't give up the fight actually until we get those ratifications in place. So now the meetings with all the coalition had pledged their support now starts as of this week. The media run starts this week as well.
Do you believe it'll be effective? Because over the past years, we have had so many anti-corruption campaigns by other bodies, opposition, other NGOs. Do you think the one led by BCCI will be effective?
It can only be effective as much as how many people or how much of Belizeans really understand the meaning behind corruption and how much do they want to change it. It can't be just a BCCI campaign. It has to be all of us willing to say, we don't want that to continue anymore. And so the success is going to be dependent on how united we are and how much of us are willing to really put that to test.
At the entrance to the expo, visitors were provided with the opportunity to sign a petition that supports Belize's signature to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. The People's United Party has launched a petition dubbed Bring Back the Senate Inquiry. The launch was done online in an effort to garner signatures of support to immediately initiate a full and impartial investigation into the Auditor General's special audit of the Immigration and Nationality Department on nationality, visas and passports for the period 2011 to 2013. PUP Senator Valerie Wood spoke of what they hope to accomplish while stating that this is no different from what Dean Barrow was asking for when he was the leader of the opposition as it relates to a Senate inquiry into the Social Security Board.
What we are asking for as senators appointed by the opposition is no different than what was asked for by the then leader of opposition, Honorable Dean Barrow, when it was the matter of the Social Security Board scandal. In fact, several of your news stations have it on record where he came out saying, and as well as some of the other members of the opposition party, when they picketed or protested the Social Security Board offices back in 2004, they were very clear that no government majority committee can fairly and unbiasedly, if I can use such a term, investigate themselves on such a scandal. Then it was Social Security. Today it is about our nationality. The rationale does not change just because it is now Prime Minister Dean Barrow and Minister Godwin House that is at the helm of this scandal. So that has to first be established. Regarding the petition, the hope is that as many Belizeans would sign on to ask and encourage either individually or organizations that they belong to, write into, if they wish, their area representative, or directly to members of government to have the Senate inquiry, which is the mechanism specifically required under the Constitution that worked for the then opposition back in 2004 and for back then Senator Hulse when he was the business sector rep, for it to be utilized again. Why are we asking for that? Because it did work. There were changes made both to Social Security Board and to DFC. Today, you have not heard of scandals under SSB and DFC. So it did work in that regard. It also worked because it did call a government into question, as it should have done. We are asking for no less. What is happening here is using fanciful language and legal arguments to bamboozle the Belizean public to believe that their way is the fair way, when it is not. 6 government ministers, being the majority, can never and will never, as it could never have done when they were in opposition, fairly investigate a scandal of this size. And yes, if they would agree to an international independent body, I think all of us would welcome that. But I do believe we all know that's not going to happen either. So we are calling for as many Belizeans, regardless of which party you support, regardless of which position you took back in the last election. The point is, on this matter, on our nationality, it's about the country first. We're looking very negatively worldwide, and it's only us who can put some pressure as a people to use the mechanism that worked in the past to investigate.
The petition further calls for this Senate Special Select Committee to be brought back to conduct the Senate inquiry and for it to comprise of 5 senators, being 1 from the senators appointed by the government, 1 from the senators appointed by the leader of the opposition, and the 3 senators appointed by the social partners. The People's United Party called a press conference this afternoon at their headquarters to highlight what they described as corruption coming from the top seat of government. The focus was on the Belize passport issued to the brother-in-law of Kim Simplice Barrow. In his introduction, PUP Senator Michael Shabat told the media that there are mandatory requirements that must be met by all foreigners, which Peter William Dahlstrom did not meet. As it relates to Dahlstrom, Shabat says that an application for nationality was submitted to immigration on April 5, 2012, in which he only spoke of a desire to eventually live in Belize, which is a direct admission that residence in Belize was merely an intention at the time. On the application form, he spoke of only being in Belize for a few weeks at a time, which Shabat says makes him unqualified for nationality. Despite this, Dahlstrom was recommended for nationality on October 22, 2012, and Minister Godwin Hulse reportedly signed the nationality certificate on that very same day. Shabat continued by quoting Minister Hulse as saying that Dahlstrom had met the requirements for residency because he was married from 1994 and had only applied in 2012. Based on this, Senator Shabat spoke of demands being presented by the opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, for all of these reasons, we are calling for the following. 1, the government to revoke the passport and nationality certificate of Mr. Peter Dahlstrom, along with all other fraudulent passports and nationality certificates identified in the Auditor General's Special Audit Report. 2, Minister Godwin Hulse resigns immediately from the post of Minister of Police to allow for a fair and unbiased investigation into the findings of the Auditor General's Special Audit Report. And 3, the reinstitution of the motion in the Senate for a Senate inquiry, which is the only mechanism specifically allowed under the Constitution of Belize to investigate these matters.
With numerous reports of irregularities noted in the audit reports, the media asked the PUP senators why they are singling out the Prime Minister's brother-in-law.
The Dahlstrom case is very significant of what is happening in the government overall. It shows that from the very top level that there have been fraudulent actions being taken from people at the very top. And so this is a perfect example of what is going on and being sanctioned by people at the very top of the government.
And to add to that, at last week's government press conference, if we were to take the logic that you're making about all others, why zone in on this one? Well, the Prime Minister himself made sure that he and Minister Hulse stepped up to clarify this one. They could have used the opportunity as well to clarify so many others. They went as far as to bring out a legal opinion, verbally, not written, from a deceased lawyer. So that's very telling that of all the cases cited, yes, you must clarify because we've raised it, but also supported by clarifying so many others. So at that press conference, all the other ministers of government and his cabinet were not being protected. He stepped up to protect himself. The important fact also is the fact that we are now dealing with a minister that is not just the Minister of Immigration. He's also the Minister of Police. And so even if we were to be generous and trust that a joint committee with a majority-led government members in it could even dare to be fair, when it comes to having the police follow up these investigations, how can the police follow it up when one of the glaring instances involves their boss, the Minister of Police? As you'd say in a Creole, rat can't mind cheese.
Section 11 of the Immigration Act addresses the mandatory time period required to be legally resident, which is a minimum of 1 year. Last Thursday, government officials attempted to explain why the audit done on several sectors in the Immigration Department were flawed. The equipment was blamed as a contributing factor, and so was the lack of communication by the Auditor General to those who were being fingered. Here is how the Prime Minister worded it.
It has made some giant, unjustified leaps in coming to certain conclusions. It never gave the department the opportunity to respond to and clear up even those allegations which had perfectly legitimate explanations. And it sure as hell did not follow the rules of natural justice in naming people as guilty of wrongdoing without ever giving them a chance to answer or even comment on the accusations. This last is important because the natural and legitimate expectation is that the report ought to be followed by disciplinary and perhaps even criminal action against individuals. But that expectation will now have to contend with the certainty that wrongdoers would immediately move for court orders to quash proceedings against them on the basis of violation of their rights.
Today, Love News got a copy of a correspondence dated March 4th, 2014, where the then Finance Officer Teresita Castellanos was asking that she not be transferred from the Immigration Department for several reasons. The letter notes that the insistence of her transfer was coming from the CEO despite requests to the contrary from the Immigration Director. The letter reads in part, we quote, I, Teresita Castellanos, Finance Officer 2 at the Immigration Department, hereby write for the record my discontent in regards to the approval of a transfer to the Ministry of Forestry and Agriculture to take effect on 3rd March 2014. Presently, the Immigration Department is undergoing a restructuring phase, and the Finance Officer forms a part of the management team and is involved in this process since late last year. My other concern with the timing of my transfer is that the government audit team is at the Immigration Department. My job as the finance officer is to be available to provide any and all necessary records and documents such as cancelled passports and to answer queries for the period 1st April 2011 up to present. The transfer from this department will be at my disadvantage. I will not be around to answer to the audit report, which may require access to documents with which a new finance officer may be unfamiliar at this time. It is important to note that the auditing is taking place due to irregularities and the passport issue that occurred in September of last year. The finance officer, in addition to the assigned normal accounting duties, is also responsible for the safekeeping of blank passports and unissued visas for the department. Upon request, these passports are issued by the finance officer to the passport officer, and visas are issued to officers in charge of the district and border stations and to the foreign missions. Despite my justifiable concerns on the repercussions a transfer may cause at this time, the Chief Executive Officer, Ministry of Labour and Immigration Services, is adamant in having me transferred out of the department. The Director of Immigration has verbally requested that the transfer be deferred at this time. The CEO refusal to concede to this request is unwarranted and, in my opinion, will only add to an already unstable and vulnerable department. End of quote. The letter was addressed to the chairman of the Public Services Commission, Patrick Bernard, and was carbon copied to the CEOs of the Public Service as well as Labour and Immigration, the Director of Immigration and the President of the Public Service Union. At the time of this correspondence, the sister of Minister John Saldivar was the CEO of Immigration. The urgency and persistence in having Teresita Castellanos transferred has added to the audacity of the audit reports and now begs the question as to why the transfer was necessary, particularly at a time when irregularities were being investigated by the audit team. Morning's press conference, officer in charge of Eastern Division South ACP Edward Broster provided an update on the fatal road traffic accident that claimed the life of Dean Dawson, a mechanic of Gardenia Village, on March 30th of this year. Broster shared that the results of the blood specimen taken from the driver of the vehicle that hit Dawson are now available.
We have gotten back a certificate from the chemist which certified that cocaine was found in Mr. Pickman's blood. The Dean Dawson file is at the DPP and we are awaiting the DPP directives.
This afternoon, Prime Minister Dean Barrow was asked to comment on this situation.
I've heard about it and I certainly have to look into that. It's a serious disclosure, and if it is true, it raises very problematic issues for Mr. Pickman and for government. Can I leave it at that until I've had a chance? Look, we've been talking about natural justice. I have to hear from the man. I have to see what the evidence is, but for sure it's not something that will be ignored and not dealt with.
Police are waiting for the file to return from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to conclude what charges would be laid against Dorian Pickman. Pickman, who is the director of the Government Press Office, was driving a government-issued vehicle when the incident occurred. For his part, Pickman posted on his Facebook page, "I am aware of certain allegations made against me and I want to categorically deny any such thing which was put in the public domain. I was involved in an unfortunate accident and cooperated at the scene willingly, volunteering as specimen. The matter is before the court and I will have my say when I am sure I will be vindicated by the legal system. Until then, I will continue to vigorously defend my professional reputation." The Chief Justice's ruling on Section 53 has stirred up controversy as several bodies have mobilized in protest against the decision. The churches, the opposition unions, and other bodies have given their stance on the monumental ruling, and over the weekend we asked President of the BCCI, Nikita Usher, for the Chamber's position.
Has taken no position on Section 53. We don't feel that it's one that affects our constituent. We feel that that can be left in the way how it is, and we will not fight that issue at all. And we've said this to the Prime Minister categorically as well.
But this has been discussed around private sectors.
Discussed with
among you guys.
Our position of the chamber is that we will not take any position. So what is there in the house, that's it. We won't take any position from there. We don't feel that either way it goes, it will affect our constituent. Our constituents is the business community. There are those who claim that there might be discrimination. It could be discrimination both ways. And so we don't feel that it's one that we don't win. Either way we take that position. So there's no position from the chamber at this point in time.
According to a Guatemalan newspaper, its government is asking for a new investigation into the death of the minor which occurred in the Cebada area about 4 months ago. The Prensa Libre has written that President Jimmy Morales emphasized his rejection of the OAS report on who is responsible for the shooting that took place. The president said that the report is inconclusive and should have criminal implications for those responsible for the death of the Guatemalan child. Inconsistencies in the report of the Organization of American States were identified Monday by the state of Guatemala about the armed incident that left one dead child in the adjacency zone. Belize, according to local forensic experts, does not match forensic autopsy report of Belize and his 9 fatal injuries to the child. Belize is yet to respond, and so is the OAS. In the report, it did note, and we quote, "The firearms that caused the death of the child were a .22 caliber rifle and a 12-gauge shotgun. The BDF M4 carbine did not produce any of the wounds on the deceased or wounded. The elements that we used to analyze this information were the autopsy reports, documents, interviews, and assorted photographs, laboratory examination results from the National Forensic Science Service, the wounds, and the detention reports of the deceased minor." End of quote. A U.S. registered vessel ran aground in Belize waters over the weekend, as was confirmed by the government of Belize through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Reports are that the vessel was bound for Big Creek Port in southern Belize after leaving the port of Livingston, Guatemala, just after 10 o'clock on Friday, September 2nd. The vessel is registered in Delaware, USA, and was grounded near Hatchet Key on the Barrier Reef, just east-northeast of the Placencia Peninsula. Aboard the vessel were 3 Colombians, 4 Guatemalans, and an American. The vessel ran aground at around 5 o'clock on Saturday evening and was reported to the Belize Coast Guard by the Fisheries Department. The Belize Coast Guard has secured the area, and a task force comprising of the Department of Environment, Immigration, and the Belize Port Authority were deployed today to further examine the scene and determine what further actions will be taken. Tyrone Davis was lying on his hammock below his home in Sandhill Village on Saturday around 4 in the afternoon when police say a gunman emerged from an overgrown area and shot at him one time, causing his death. Police stated that they found a single 12-gauge expended cartridge on the scene, but they haven't been able to ascertain a motive for the shooting. Police have recorded statements from 3 individuals. Officer commanding the Eastern Division Rural Police Assistant Commissioner of Police Edward Broster gave us more details about Davis's murder.
Police visited mile 20 and found the lifeless body of one Tyrone Davis, 30 years, of the said village, suffering from gunshot wounds to the throat and arm. So far, we have one person of interest in custody, and we're interviewing that individual to ascertain what exactly transpired and caused the death of Mr. Davis.
In 2014, Davis had been charged for the criminal offense of aggravated burglary for invading the home of 2 women, a 51-year-old and an 82-year-old, and a teenage boy in Crooked Tree, and physically assaulting them. Police have detained a 19-year-old for questioning in connection with Davis's murder. A fatal road traffic accident occurred on the Boom Hattieville Road this morning. The driver of the vehicle, 39-year-old Margendon Connerkay from Carmelita Village in the Orange Oak District, told police he saw a person sitting in the middle of the road. Eastern Division Police shared the information.
Mr. Connerkay reported that whilst he was driving on the Boom Hattieville Road, approaching a curve, he saw a dark-skinned male person sitting in the middle of the road and unavoidably hit him, causing him to decease on the spot.
Police have not been able to identify the victim. Eastern Division Rural Police spoke this morning about the alarming ease with which youths obtain and use firearms for the purpose of criminal activity. Assistant Commissioner of Police Edward Broster expressed his concern and stated that police must find a way to make it more difficult for criminals to obtain guns.
The access to firearm in Belize in a whole, not just the rural, is a significant problem to the crime situation in Belize, because a man with gun will shoot. A man without gun cannot shoot. So we have to find ways in which we can really curb the availability of firearms to individuals, and unlicensed firearms at that.
The latest gun violence murder ended in the death of Tyrone Davis this past Saturday. 2 teenagers from the Corozal district have been charged with attempted murder, wounding, and robbery. Last Friday, Corozal police went to the Corozal Community Hospital where they saw 48-year-old businessman Israel Gomez suffering from a single gunshot wound to his left shoulder. Gomez's common-law wife told police that just after 1 o'clock that afternoon, she was at St. Jude Block Factory located in San Andres Village when two Hispanic men entered with firearms. They demanded Gomez's money and belongings. One of the men searched her desk drawers and took the day's sales, which amounted to $1,500, 3 containers containing coins, and Gomez's chain. A struggle ensued between Gomez and the perpetrators, which resulted in him being shot. Police have since detained and charged 19-year-old Alvan Nunez of College Road and 18-year-old Pedro Tun of Skeleton Town area, Corozal Town. Police are investigating a report of theft in San Pedro. 58-year-old Edwina June King reported that on August 29, she took off her 3 gold rings and placed them on top of a coffee table inside her room. King said on September 1st, she realized her rings were missing from the room. 35-year-old Steven Nunez of San Pablo area of San Pedro and Burguski has been charged with kept unlicensed firearm and unlicensed ammunition and aggravated assault. On Saturday, Nunez's common-law wife reported to police that he pointed a firearm at her. Police searched the apartment and found a chrome pistol with small chrome magazine loaded with 3 .380 live rounds. On Saturday, the Rotaract Club of Belize donated school bags and other school supplies to 65 boys and girls so they could be ready for school this morning. The donation was through fundraising events and sponsorship from the business community. A small ceremony was held at the basketball court of the Samuel Haynes Institute, where we spoke to the Vice President and Publicity Director for the Rotaract Club of Belize, Adrian Young.
We have our 4th annual back to school drive where we give backpacks to kids. Every year we target a primary school, but given the circumstances of the past hurricane, we decided to look more at an affected area rather than just one school where maybe we'll be duplicating who already got help. So we went to families and we talked to them and find out who have not gotten any help with their back to school and their kids. You know, everyone's in the rush of back to school right now. So we went to families and met with them personally, and we looked for children in standard 1 and up to put their names down and have them out here for a ceremony to give them their school bags and all their school supplies that they need to go back to school on Monday. This is one of our most crucial projects for the year as a club because we think that education is key, and sometimes parents want to get their kids back to school, but it's not that they don't want, they can't. And sometimes a little school bag with school supplies goes a long way, because a school bag, getting them prepared, that's just one less expense for a family. Especially if they have more than 1 kid, it's a big help for them.
2 of the children received a full scholarship to complete Standard 6. There were 178 booths from 96 companies at this year's Expo Belize Marketplace at the ITVET compound in Belize City. It was the Expo's 20th anniversary, and the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, BCCI, wanted to attract more than 20,000 visitors. They fell a little short as just over 15,000 people attended the 2-day event, a decline from last year's figure. BCCI President Keisha Osher said that the Expo has evolved over the years to be more than just a marketplace, but a place to test and develop business ideas.
Importance is twofold. One is, as you recall my earlier presentation, it forms a part of the September celebration. So it spices up the September celebration. It also gives opportunity for businesses to showcase what they have to offer, services or products. Especially for smaller entrepreneurs who ordinarily would not have a place for them to display what they actually have. And so this is a golden opportunity for them to show their services and show their products, and people can now be acquainted with what they're doing and can find them, contacts with them.
At Saturday's opening ceremonies, BCCI presented awards to 8 companies for participating in the event since the first year. On Saturday also, the Marion Jones Stadium was the venue for the Carnival King and Queen competition. Here are the winners of the competition.
First place winner is Queen Renata from Jump Street Posse, Trenchtown Masqueraders, Queen Gia, and of course, rounding off the top 3 is Queen Amara from Pickstock Carnival Band. All right, the Junior King. 3rd place, King Lionel, Colette Royal Revelers. 2nd place, Pickstock Carnival Band, King Aaron. And 1st place, King Firebon, Jump Street Posse. Third place, Belizean Jewels, Mistress of the Secret Garden. Second place, Sunshine Masqueraders, Queen Ara. And the big winner, Titans Mass Band, Queen La Serene. Come right up, ladies. Third place, King Fabricio Soca Mocha Carnival Band. Second place, from Mother Nature, King Afrique. And of course, King Karkinos, Titans Mass Band.
And the Carnival Road March will take place on Saturday, September 17th. And before we leave, we'll give our thought conditioner for today, and it comes from Vince Lombardi Jr. It reads, and we quote, "The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack in will." This has been the Evening News on Love Television. We invite you to log on to our website at www.lovefm.com for transcripts of our news stories. Thank you for watching. I am Ernesto Vasquez.